Welcome back, everyone. Let's go ahead and take a look at the iPhone SE2 and see how it compares against the iPhone 11 in 2021. Now, without a doubt, if you have all the money in the world, getting the iPhone 11 is probably the better way to go. It's a tremendous phone, has so much capability, and I think it's a beautiful one. The iPhone SE2, though, much cheaper in the brand new market and cheaper in the used market as well. So in reality, you have a really good phone on both. They are very similar in so many different ways, but obviously visually they look pretty different. If you want to pick up either one of these things, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now on the front, the iPhone SE2 has that 4.7-inch IPS panel, and it's definitely a much smaller phone, but it doesn't really feel cheap. It feels pretty premium still, as you guys can see. Glass on the front, glass on the back, obviously bezel design, home button, but I really don't think it looks that bad. With the iPhone 11, obviously a much different design, has that 6.1-inch IPS panel on the front. And like I mentioned, this is another one of those devices that, it is timeless in so many different ways. It has that notch. It doesn't really seem outdated at all. I mean, like the iPhone 13s, iPhone 13 Pros and stuff are not going to be that different from this device in my opinion. So it still looks very good as well. Now that pretty much covers it up in the front standpoint. Thinness and thickness between the two, not much has changed here, but the iPhone SE2 is definitely a much thinner device, as you guys can see. I mean, it's much thinner than the iPhone 11 for sure. But on the back, glass backs on both. To be honest, if the iPhone SE2 had a dual camera setup, you would think these are almost the exact same phone. They have the same type of setup, centered Apple logos, glass on the back, single camera setup on the iPhone SE2, dual camera setup on the iPhone 11, lightning ports at the bottom, wireless charging on both, and that's really pretty much it on the outside. There's really not a whole much different between them. But there is a pretty big difference when it comes down. Actually, there's not even a difference in terms of software either. They have the same exact chipset. And because of that, you're probably going to be getting you're getting the exact same lifespan on both. So however many updates the iPhone 11 gets in terms of software and iOS is the same exact the iPhone SE2 is getting. So again, that's a massive thing to keep in mind. When you get a phone like this, you want it to be as long lasting as possible. And these two phones are very similar in that standpoint. So whether you get the iPhone SE2 or you get the iPhone 11, both are going to be lasting around the same exact time. So keep that in mind. I'm a huge fan of both these phones. I'm a huge fan of iOS. And you're pretty much getting the same type of experience on both. One is a gesture-based design though on the iPhone 11. The SE2 is still a very good phone though for sure. Battery life wise, like I mentioned before, this was without a doubt the biggest problem of the iPhone SE2. You have a much smaller battery on the iPhone SE2 than the iPhone 11. And this battery life is something that, I will be honest, is worth upgrading for to an iPhone 11 just because of that. I'm not a fan of this battery life at all, and throughout all my tests, it's looked like the iPhone SE2 was probably the worst one. The iPhone 11, on the other hand, a little bit of a different story. This phone, much better battery life. This thing has one of the best battery lives from majority of iPhones. I think the 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max are better, but this one, very good battery life, and I'm a huge fan of this specific battery for sure. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. Now let's go into a speed comparison between them. The iPhone SE2 and the iPhone 11 have the same chipset, Apple A13 Bionic chip. The main difference between them is that the iPhone SE2 has 3 gigs of RAM, the iPhone 11 has 4 gigs of RAM. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between them. Like I mentioned, I don't think there's going to be that big of a difference, but we'll go and see if there is one. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out like I mentioned. So let's get into it. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. It's a little awkward on both. Pretty much the same thing. Let's go to App Store, 3, 2, 1. And both are on iOS 15 as well, so that's another big thing to keep in mind. Pretty much the same exact thing there. Scrolling speed wise, you can see essentially the same thing as well. There's not that big of a difference. Getting the same exact vibe on both. Hopping out of this one, let's get into something like health, which I don't even have. Photos, 3, 2, 1. I think the SE2 was a little bit faster there, surprisingly. Hopping out of this one, let's get into camera, 3, 2, 1. A little bit of a glitch on the iPhone 11 right there. Hopping out of this one, let's get into something like mail, 3, 2, 1. And you can see essentially the same thing here too. There's not that big of a difference. That pretty much covers it up in those apps. Now let's do some of these third-party ones. Let's get into something like Stack, 3, 2, 1. You can see iPhone SE2 a little bit faster there. I was not expecting that, to be completely honest. Quizlet, 3, 2, 1. I'm hopping all over the place with these apps. I think the iPhone SE2 again was the faster one there. Hopping out of this one, let's get into Dropbox, which I don't know where it is here. We can get into, I guess, the next one, just Snake versus Blocks, 3, 2, 1. And the SE2 was the faster one there. Again, getting into some gameplay, I don't think there's going to be that big of a difference here. But as always, there's going to be some improvements for both. Hopping out of this one, let's get into Netflix. 3, 2, 1. And the iPhone 11, I think, was a faster one there. Hopping out of this one, let's get into Temple Run 2. 3, 2, 1. Man, a little bit of a pop-up on this phone. I hate when that happens, but we'll kind of give them both a little bit of leeway. We'll give this one a leeway, and even with that pop-up, I think it actually would have been about the same exact thing. It's a shame that actually happened, and I hate when that happens so much. But again, what are you going to do? Hopping out of this one, we can go and get into something like the Real Racing 3. 3, 2, 1. There's probably going to end up being a glitch on both, but I think I kind of have an idea of which one is which. As you can see, a little bit of a glitch on here. We'll hop out of this one, and we'll hop out of this one. Now, RAM management is going to be the bigger difference. If I go and go back in the beginning, both did pretty good here. Not that big of a difference. Hopping out of this one, going back to the beginning again, pretty much the same exact thing. So what I can tell you is definitely both are fast. I don't really think there's that big of a difference between them. So if you're trying to find one that's faster, both are the same. The iPhone 11 would be better in RAM, but I really didn't even see it here. So in terms of that covers it. Let's go and hit on the cameras. Now, like I mentioned before, single camera setup on the iPhone SE2, single wide-angle lens. iPhone 11 has a wide and an ultra-wide sensor, and definitely the iPhone 11's camera is better. You have 4K 60 on the back of both of them, but on the front, there's a little bit of a difference. Single camera setups on both, but you do have 4K at 60 capability on the iPhone 11. The first iPhone to bring 4K at 60 with the iPhone SE2 really only has 1080p at 60, so you're losing, or not even at 60, I think it's 1080p at 30, so that's kind of, you're losing some functionality, portrait mode and stuff on both, but the iPhone 11's camera is definitely far better than the iPhone SE2's for sure. So now to kind of answer the question to sum up this video, should you buy an iPhone 11 or should you buy an iPhone SE2? Well, this is what I'll tell you, I think for sure, to be honest, the iPhone 11 is just a better one in every single way. It is just so much better of a phone. Speed and everything's going to be the same. Better RAM management here, but you're getting a better camera and you're getting better battery life. And to be honest, the battery life is the #1 complaint of the iPhone SE2. It is one of those things that I'm not happy about on the iPhone SE2 at all. And it's one of my biggest disadvantages of this phone. This phone for $599 and even cheaper in the used market is a solid phone for sure, and I'm very, very happy with this type of device. The iPhone SE2, on the other hand, is another one of those phones that I just think is pretty crazy in so many different ways. I think it's a very good phone, and I think it's one of the best budget tier phones. I mean, 400 is still pretty expensive, but budget tier phone. But the thing is that this specific device, it's a great phone for the price. It's just, if it just had a better battery life, it would have been so much better. That's my #1 complaint about this phone. If you don't really care about battery life or you're around a charger all the time, this is a great phone. Other than that though, if you have a little bit more money to spend, even in the used market, dude, the iPhone 11 is so much better of a phone. If the iPhone SE, there's just so, 10 out of 10, the iPhone 11's like a 9 out of 10, the iPhone SE2 is like a 7 out of 10. But those 2 points is a pretty big difference when it comes down to these two, in my opinion. So speed and everything is the same. RAM is about the same. Even though this one has 1 extra gig of RAM, I would recommend you guys at the end of the day, the iPhone 11, pick it up. Tremendous phone. You're not going to regret it. The iPhone SE2, good phone too for the price, but the iPhone 11 is a far better one in my opinion. So in terms of that covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.